Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Thursday Night ELF Live. As you guys can see, I am with a couple of star-studded co-hosts today. Matt Bressington, who joined me on Monday and has been here, but Silas Nacita, the man, the myth, the legend himself, is back on the show. Welcome back, Silas. Matt, welcome again. What's going on, fellas?
Thanks, Nick, bro. I've been traveling all over and then all over America and in the Caribbean. But it's good to be back. I've missed you. I've missed the people, our friends in the chat, and I've missed talking about ELF football.
There we go, bro. We got some good stuff to talk about. A lot of drama's been going down in the league, and we're going to get all into it today. Everyone in the chat, what's going on, guys? Feel free to chime in. So why don't we dive on into it? We're heading into week 6. There's a lot of drama, a lot of turnover, a lot of signings happening. It's going to take us back to Silas's favorite segment that was previously just a preseason segment. The Signing Center returns. Let's talk about some of these big signings. Guys, which one do you want to start with? I think, Matt, tell me, which one do you think is the most interesting signing?
I mean, for me, I'm going to go for Carlos Hill going into Cologne. Weddington out. I was really hot on Weddington coming into the season as a big body deep threat. He's kind of struggled with injuries so far. Only a couple games, just over 100 yards and no touchdowns at all. The passing game for Cologne it's struggled, to say the least. 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions for Weed, and just a touch over 60%. So it's not really got started. And the interesting thing about Carlos is that he's not the same receiver at all as Weddington. He's an inside slot guy. He's a big play creator. He isn't a volume receiver. He isn't an extension of the run game. That's not what he is. He isn't a return specialist. He's a guy that can give you explosive plays, which is something that the offense has really lacked. And I do think it will work quite well for them to have someone with that experience. He's just at college at Sac State. He got over 600 yards, 692, 5 touchdowns for 50 catches. He's an explosive guy. I think it will work out well for Cologne.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, he really is a totally different type of wide receiver than Weddington. And just you said, I did broadcast Cologne's game against the Madrid Bravos, and Weddington was just very, very quiet, as he has kind of been all year. So he's bringing a little bit more of a kind of explosive potential here. Hopefully get the Centurions offense going. So this is a big one for them. See if that can't get a little bit of firepower for them. Next, we've got, or Silas, do you have one that you want to go on? I think a guy that you played with that got released this week.
Yeah, let's move on to the Helvetic Mercenaries. Talk about them for a second. One of the things I want to mention before, just as we're getting into this, you talked about us talking about the signing center all preseason, and you're right. I didn't really think about it preseason that the signing center would be something that would be a regular occurrence. Which creates this whole new aspect of this league that we haven't talked a lot about. And that's that the way the league is set up currently, we're going to have so much turnover. We're going to see this. This isn't what we're seeing right now is the only outcome for the type of level that the play is at versus the training and rehabilitation that the players are getting on the side. This is something that I saw last year, and I'm going to see it. And until the training and rehab meets the level of play that we're seeing, we're going to see high turnover throughout the entire season.
It's a great point, man. I mean, you said it, and like that's why we're seeing a lot. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these other guys that are being placed on IR. But there's a lot of turnover. But going back here to the Mercenaries, I think a lot of people were shocked about this one. Ken Hike Jr., ELF All-Star, basically the spark, one of the biggest stars on that team, one of the few positive notes released. What do you guys think about this? Silas, I'll start with you. You played with him. What are your thoughts on them getting rid of Ken Hike?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't talked to Ken personally, but my guess would be that this is due to just a misconnect in the direction of the team. I think, once teams start falling apart, they've had multiple owners, they've had key people quit, they're losing their best players. that's a hard program to stay with, and it's a hard place to keep a good, positive attitude towards. My assumption is that Ken and the coaching staff, they just didn't see eye to eye and things, and just decided, it's not worth it. Ken decided, I wouldn't be surprised if Ken gets signed by a GFL team or something, or another ELF team. But I'm assuming that's the cause, just not seeing eye to eye and where the team's going.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess. I mean, like, he's one of the more elite talents, and I mean, Matt. I mean, you're a professional scout. Where would you rank him as in terms of DBs within this league? I mean, is he a top 5 American DB?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's sublime. I love what Hike brings to the game. He also was like a very, Silas would give more of an insight, but he was very vocal from what I heard within the organization as a leadership role. And, like you said, there maybe be a disconnect between the franchise and him or whatever. I think every single team in the league is going to be on the phone to Ken Hike, seeing if he's going to go play for them. We've seen releases that we'll talk about in a minute about people in the same position. Could be an easy swap out. I think Ken Hike's elite. I was jaw dropped when I saw the news. I heard a little bit just before it was announced that rumblings, and I was like, that's not going to happen. And then it did. And it's odd, to say the least. We've seen the people in charge say that it was, they're not giving up on the season. They're trying to look forward to the future. And then you release your all-star defender. It seems not really a decision for the future.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. And so a lot of people talking about that. Yeah. Jamal Clay, who's in the chat, Athletes Forum right there. He did an interview with Jeremy Bryson, the new director of football operations for the Mercenaries. Sort of talked about it just a little bit. But you guys can check that out. So that's a big one with the Mercenaries. And then another unfortunate piece of news from the Mercenaries. Another teammate of yours, Silas, Tim Haney, out for the season. One of the better defensive linemen. Silas, what are your thoughts on him and the team losing him?
I mean, this is about as bad as it can get. Losing Tim and Ken at the same time. You're talking about two of the pillars of a defense. Honestly, Tim is I would say Tim's even of a bigger hit than Ken. Because Ken, you could go out and find an American who's really at a high level. Tim, you can't replace Tim. And not only that, but he is Swiss. He speaks the language. You have a different impact when you are a homegrown player, a leader like that, than you do as an American. And he's much more irreplaceable, honestly, than even Ken was. So things are not looking so good from a Mercs.
Yeah, that's tough. And that's a great point, man. Of course, like we're always appreciate the American talent that's in this league, but there is a lot of American talent that you can go get. So the turnover is a little bit more replaceable there, but with an elite homegrown guy, especially obviously a great on the field, but then a culture guy as well. That's tough. So Mercenaries, we're thinking of you guys. You turn around Jamal. I know you're in the chat there. It's going to be all right, brother. Okay. We're going to, you're going to, better days are ahead.
I do want to, somebody said, Silas, the Helvetic needs you. I'm like, honestly, I need my hands and I need my collarbone. I need all that stuff. And I feel like if I go there, that's I'm going to lose.
It's tough. It's tough. Hey, it's brutal. Helvetic, we're hoping for you guys. Let's move on to some positive news. This is a position that I like to talk about. Sebastian Gauthier, the Frankfurt Galaxy, he has been activated off the IR. Had a knee injury last year, worked to come back all through the offseason, and knew that he had to miss the first few games. So he's going to come one of the better European linebackers. And so this is some positive news for the Galaxy, who are looking to possibly make a run there in that Western Conference. We'll talk about them a little bit more later. Matt, what's your assessment of Sebastian as a linebacker?
Yeah, Sebastian's going to add so much more to that defense. The criticism when he went down was they're lacking a lot in the box when it deals with the run game, just from a defensive line point and from a linebacker standpoint. They've somewhat proved me wrong on that. They've been better than I thought they would be. But adding him in, who is one of the premier linebackers, especially as a European, to come in and reinforce that. We saw France kind of give him a few issues. We saw the Rhein Fire give him a lot of issues with Glenn. So to have someone that's that secure, that able to be in pass coverage and also as a run defender is going to give them a lot of momentum and a lot more, I think, hope, because they're negative. They're not doing very well. So to have someone who's as fundamental to that team as Sebastian, I think is only going to be good news for them.
Yeah. And of course, like everything he does on the field, but then also he's a huge leader for that team and a great culture guy as well. So hopefully helping turn the Frankfurt Galaxy to a plus 500 team in the coming weeks. Then another Western Conference team, the big bad Rhein Fire. They have signed Marlon Franklin Jr., the elite defensive back, played in the ELF in 2021 for our boy Maxie's Hamburg Sea Devils, and then for the Edmonton Elks in the CFL. Apparently, I haven't seen much tape of him, but apparently he's an absolute baller. Have you guys seen much on him?
A little bit. He's got active hand to the catch point. He is an aggressive player. He can tackle very solidly. He plays angry. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell he really wants to go play football. He played 6 games for Hamburg back in the day. He had 1 interception, which I don't think is as representative as how good of a player he is. Mm-hmm. He played at Cal. It doesn't get much better than that in terms of college experience. Spent a few years in the CFL racking up stats there too with Edmonton. He is a premier corner. I think he's going to be immediately locked down.
That's interesting. That's 2 CFL experienced corners that have dipped right here into the league with Franklin Jr. and then Raheem Wilson a couple weeks ago for the Stuttgart Surge. So we're getting some CFL talent in there. So that's not all that the Rhein Fire did. They activated their American wide receiver, Kelvin McKnight. Is this going to fix the Rhein Fire's passing woes? Like, we've seen they've been all Glenn Tunga. Is Kelvin McKnight going to be the secret sauce that makes everything click?
I'll go first on that one. Yeah. So they have struggled to get the ball out quickly. We saw it the last time. They played a lot of deflections. The line has really been a problem for them. They had Hextall, who's more of an outside perimeter guy. Having McKnight to come in close, I think, gives them that outlet for Jadrian to kind of offload the ball a bit quicker, try and get some more creative with their slot routes. The Brian Winter loss, I think, has really rocked that slot position quite a bit, because they didn't really have much players that could affect that position in the field. They do still somewhat like a deep threat. It's kind of exchanging a deep threat for a slot threat. Mm-hmm. I think ultimately it'll be a good decision, but I don't think it's the be-all, end-all. I still think it'll take a minute. With the offensive line hasn't been as good as we remembered it being. Yeah. So, I think it will help, but it's not, the massive thing that is going to completely fix the passing offense.
All right.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I think the big difference we've seen is the O-line from last year versus this year is aspect. I think the O-line was a little bit better than last year, but here's the other thing that I think is kind of overlooked is just simply put, the teams they're playing are better. So it's like, it's not necessarily that the offense, Jadrian and the past offense they're like gotten a lot worse. It's just everyone's gotten better, and now they're trying to figure out how do we compete against these guys who are just jumped so far. I mean, Paris from last year to this year, crazy. Yeah. Berlin is showing up out of nowhere, giving crazy, and then Madrid. It's like there's teams that are coming out of nowhere. Rhein Fire is used to just being able to sit in the pocket for 6 seconds and have 4 guys open, and now it's maybe you got to go through 3 reads and find your one. That's a lot harder. And Jadrian, honestly, doesn't have a ton of experience playing against teams that they're not a lot better than.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. And what you said, and I think who in the Athletes Forum, Jamal in the chat says, agreed, the league is catching up. There's a lot more parity this year, and those top 10 teams, like really any given weekend, any of those teams can beat each other. And I think that's a great point, man. And that's why it's been so exciting this year. And we will see if the Rhein Fire can start clicking in the passing game. For now, they're still able to win games just giving the ball to Glenn Tunga, who was the MVP of the league last week, put up another 175 yards or something. So Glenn's really been carrying them. Hopefully he can get a little bit of relief there as they start going through the air. So that's with the Rhein Fire. Then moving out east, the Vienna Vikings. Now we know that their starting quarterback, Ben Holmes, was injured after a couple games. He is now going to be activated coming up off IR. Interesting thing, though, that Vikings still have Shelton Epler on the roster. So right now they're sitting with 2 A's on the roster. And not to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but Weston Carr, their original American wide receiver, also activated. So we got 2A receivers and 2A quarterbacks currently on the roster. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
Oh, good. Yeah, so Reese Horn is absolutely the best receiver, I think, to keep on the field at this point. He's the hot hand. The ELF has a shortened season compared to other, American football leagues in the States. So feeding a hot hand for a receiver that just went for the 8th highest receiving game in all time in ELF history is a smart decision. Reese Horn's a veteran. He's played all over the place. He's fantastic. So he's hot. Keep him on the field. There's no reason to take him off. I think having Epler and Holmes both on the roster at the same time is pretty interesting, though, because Epler has been subjectively the better quarterback.
Yeah,
he has the worst teams, but subjectively he's been better.
That's interesting. That's really, really interesting. And this kind of reminds me of the Stuttgart Surge situation last year when Riley Hennessy got hurt and then Kenny Allen came in and kind of balled out a little bit. And people on the outside, there's a lot of chatter like, oh, they should stay with Allen. But within the organization, the Surge knew that they'd always go back to Riley. I think that's going to be the same thing. Or actually, I talked to Coach Clark. That's the same thing, that they are going to go back to Ben Holmes and he's going to be their guy. But it's interesting. Somebody in the chat, Fourth Down Fiasco, said 2 QB setup this weekend. Get ready for some amazing trick plays. So that's very interesting. And then we've got Xavier Edwards on the defensive side is placed on the injured reserve. So kind of a lot of movements there. Alex in the chat, Ben VP is back. Ben Holmes hopefully going to make a run. It'll be interesting, and we'll talk about it in a second. The matchup between the Vienna Vikings and the Wrocław Panthers. That was a 16-13 win for the Vikings previously, but 2 different quarterbacks are going to be playing in that game. And I'm just very curious to see how Ben Holmes steps in here and where the Vikings go from there. So what else do we got? We got a couple more on the signing center. I think one of the last interesting ones is Prague Lions. Daniel Wright, the former Alabama safety.
Yep.
Finally to get a little action. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Matt, I'll start with you of your assessments. I mean, you watch a lot of tape on him. He didn't really get to do much yet.
No, I didn't do too much yet, but he has been playing a lot more corner. I don't really think he's a corner at the top level. When we saw Alabama, he played a lot more safety. He would come into the nickel and kind of move around a little bit behind the defense. I think they're trying to use their best athletes at the position where you need it most. Daniel didn't shine as much as perhaps he could. He won a national championship with Alabama. This isn't a player that's just, a dude. He's real. But injuries, Prague defense is kind of atrocious, to be honest with you.
Tough.
So he hasn't had the opportunity to shine as much as he potentially could. Mitchell was more of a corner, but he came on after like a week and didn't have the scheme down. Hopefully, Wright rested up, a little bit more familiar with the scheme, can make a bit more of an impact from a position. I hope that they move him more centrally and a little bit more naturally.
Interesting. Here in the chat, we've got a little bit of MVP talk going on. Mace2K said #GlennVP. Jordan Pryor said #HenVP. And of course, Alex Mauchow says #BenVP. Guys, let's jump to this real quick for a second. So the league put this out this week. Who would be your pick for MVP right now? Silas, what are your thoughts?
I'm going with my boy Glenn, man. I think the sign of an MVP is somebody who is like separating themselves and it's like really making a difference on a team. Like we talked about earlier, the Rhein Fire passing game is struggling so much, but Glenn has basically said, okay, our passing game is struggling. I'm gonna put this on my back and carry it. And so it's like, yeah, I got to go with Glenn. I have a lot to say, but I'll leave it at that.
Yep. Matt, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to go for Riley Hennessy, I think. You know, the kind of best player on the best team usually gets the MVP. He's been lights out this year so far, 14-1 turnovers, touchdowns. He's been incredible. I think a few more big games he could really – he's in an easier conference too because Glenn's going to be playing Paris again. He's got Frankfurt again. It's some tough competition. But Riley can kind of – not stat pat. That's not what he is. He is a phenomenal player. But his stats, I think, are going to look a little bit better per position than Glenn's because of the competition level.
I'm agreeing with Jordan in the chat. He says, I think you could plug in any of the top QBs in the ELF and they would have success on the surge. That's facts, bro.
That's an interesting point. Actually, we saw a little bit of that last year because there were 3 different quarterbacks, including a German homegrown, Jan Weinreich, who did have a good amount of success, except when they played you, Silas, and you guys you sent him home. I do think that's interesting. I think that there is some truth to that, but I still think that Riley is incredibly talented and is performing at just the highest level possible in this league right now.
And how much did he pay you to say that?
He's paying me a solid $500 a week, but he's a little behind on payment. So if I don't get paid up by at least 2 weeks from now, I'm going to change my MVP vote. Here's an interesting thing. Jacob Sullivan, if they were able to win some of these big games that they have been be able to finish, then he would be have a lot more people, I think, picking him as the current MVP candidate. Now, it's a long season, and there's a lot that can still happen with him. And then we love to see a defensive guy thrown in there as well. We love to see it.
I agree with you on Jacob. If they're 4-1, he's my MVP. And as far as the AJ Wentland, nobody cares about defense, so we can move on. I'm
sorry, Silas, your internet cut out. I think you said everybody loves defense and they deserve a lot of praise. That's really nice of you. I saw you play some defense, some corner, some safety. You can't try and identify yourself as a solely offensive person. I know who you are deep down. You play both ways.
Oh, man.
All right.
You gotta be crazy to play defense, bro. You gotta be crazy.
Yes, you do. All right, so that's our current MVP race, guys, in the chat. Yeah, there we go. We got some good stuff in there. Now, let's take a look at the current playoff picture. This is very interesting. The league posted this on social media this week. Guys in the chat, let us know what you think. I mean, just broad strokes, just first glance when you look at this, what are your thoughts?
I mean, if you told me Madrid were going to be in it before the announcement, I wouldn't have believed you. I think I tweeted when it got announced and then put into that division. I think I put 0-12 incoming. I mean, they definitely, they signed the best Spanish talent, so that definitely wasn't going to happen when it came to. But I definitely wouldn't have believed you that they were going to be again above the Rhein Fire, above the Galaxy, above Paris.
Same exact thoughts. Shout out to the Spanish for that. That's all I got to say.
Shout out to the Spanish. Yeah, really, really impressive. They're doing quite a bit. It'll be interesting to see, and I don't want to get too controversial here. I do think that the Bravos may have been punching above their weight for the last couple of weeks, and we'll see. We'll talk about it when we go to the games. I don't want to say too much just yet, but yeah, I think that's all very interesting. The Bravos are there. T-Roll Raiders. I would have probably thought that would have been Munich if you asked me at the start of the season. But right now, if you're getting 2 teams from the Central Conference, of course, it's going to be those 2. And if you're going to have 3 from any conference, of course, it's going to be from the West because this is the juggernaut conference. And so I think it's very, very interesting. Mike Mathis in the chat says Ravens are going to finish at 9-3 or 8-4. They have only cucumber teams left and Raiders in week 14. Exactly. And we talked about this, Matt, in the previous show, that the Ravens are running out of chances to show who they are against actual contender teams. So they played the Surge twice and the Raiders won so far. They didn't come away with a W in any of those games. So they're going to finish with a really good record, but not going to have more opportunities to play kind of elite talent.
No, I mean, they're upper mid, and they've they've lost the best teams, and they've got the easiest strength of schedule in the entire league. So you would hope that they'd finish with a good record.
Yeah,
100%. Balu says, I think the Bravos will not make the playoffs. That's like that. What do you guys think?
I mean, here's my prediction. My prediction is that as the season goes on and it gets like midway through, injuries start stepping in. It gets really difficult. I think we see them losing games that they were winning at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
I also think that Chris Helbig was like a key player that when they lost him, that kind of really hurt them. I think he was a secret sauce to that team, that offense.
Matt, what are your thoughts?
I agree, to some extent, right? Because the injuries are going to come in as part of football, and Spain doesn't have the depth of Germany. That's always going to be the way for the next however so many years. Germany can have a guy with a bit of an injury, they can take a GFL guy to serve the suspension and then put him on the field. Spain can't do that. Spain have had the Spanish season end. All the best Spanish players are now playing in the ELF, maybe bar one or two.
Right.
They're going to be lacking down the line, I think. I do agree. I do still think they make the playoffs because they've had a good stretch. They've beaten the Rhein Fire. They've got one win that we wouldn't have thought they would have had earlier. But whether or not they'll top the conference, I think is a different story.
Yeah. Marcus says, who are the Bravos competitors? Frankfurt and Paris? Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right there, Mark. It's Frankfurt, it's Paris, it's Rhein. It's those teams there in the Western Conference. So here we see the standings of where everybody's sitting at right now. And I think this is the perfect time for us to take a look at what we've got going on this weekend for week 6 of the European League of Football. Another beautiful graphic from our man Maxi of the slate of games. So, guys in the chat, participate here with us. Give us your thoughts. We're going to go through each of these games, and we're going to give our genius, expert opinions, and we're going to pick who we think is going to win each game. We'll bounce back and forth, and we'll start. Silas, if you want to start with the Dragons versus the Raiders.
Raiders.
Fair enough.
I'm
going to go for the Raiders too, just because of the run game. They've got number 1 ranked run game against Barcelona's worst ranked run game. That's going to be the big thing for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think this one, obviously, and we look here at the numbers, 97% of people are taking Raiders. I did want to say, of course, they smacked the Dragons earlier in the year 65-7. And Matt, we talked about this previously, though. The Raiders seem to be showing that they play up or down to their competition. Like when they played the Munich Ravens, they kind of played up and pulled away with that victory. So I'm just curious to see how the Raiders keep this momentum, because the reason N'Kosi Perry is there, the reason they brought him in, is to beat the Vienna Vikings. And that's coming up in a couple weeks. And so this is kind of the last, as somebody in the chat said, cucumber game, tune-up game, if you will, to get them ready for the Vikings coming week. But, of course, I got to go with the Raiders.
Nick, do we have to have a whole explanation about teams that we know are going to get smacked?
We have to, because it's part of a broader story. It's part of a broader story. And Silas, 3% of people, 3% think that the Raiders are going to lose.
And we got to give clips for the social.
Yeah, 3%. And you know what their names are? Jose, Javier,
and
Felipe,
and Mario. There we go. All right, here we go. All right, Silas, here we can say a little bit more about the next one.
Now we can talk a little bit more about.
Here we go. Although it's still
Vikings win this one. I think the Panthers, their biggest issue against the Vikings is continuity. The Vikings have so much more continuity, so much more history together. The Panthers are pulling. They brought a lot of talent in, but they're pulling everybody together. Now they got a new quarterback. Like the whole situation just makes it so much more difficult than a team that's already been together forever. Vikings for sure, and I'm going to say Vikings by at least 2 scores.
Matt?
Yeah, fair point. I mean, I'm going to go for the same Vienna, but Wroclaw, 16th ranked passing defense in the entire league. You wouldn't have expected that going in. You got Torre, you got potentially Horn, you've got all these great receivers that are going to be giving him a bit of a hard time. You've got Horn, who's a hot hand. I've said about feeding him. Matt Cole's out again on IR for the Wroclaw Panthers. That's a big hit for them again. I'm going to agree with a 2-score deficit win for Vienna. I think it might be potentially a bit of a blowout.
I'm wondering. I'm gonna go with Vienna as well. I think it could be a little bit closer than you guys. I think it could possibly be a 1-score game. But I'm wondering, what do you guys think? How is Ben Holmes gonna come off this injury and perform in this game? Do you think it's gonna take him a game or two to get back into flow and kind of perform at the level that Matt, you said that Sheldon Epler was performing at?
I mean, that's a 16th ranked passing defense. So if he's going to do against a team, it might as well be Wroclaw. Tune up, get a little bit of momentum, get that connection back to the receivers because they're going to be used to Epler throwing balls. There's a different kind of system when different quarterbacks throwing footballs. So I think it's a good opportunity against a bad passing defense to kind of get back in tune. I think he should be all right. But they've also got a run game if they need to with Kerry Pajarin in it, who is an elite running back.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the best running backs in the league. So we're all on the same page on this one. All right. Maybe we have some controversy on this next one.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk. Silas, you take us off on the Fire versus Bravos. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So here's what's interesting, and this is cool for the chat. I was initially gonna pick the Fire, but the chat actually changed my mind. So if you look at Mace says, I'm going with the Bravos over Fire. Fire is departing at 9 a.m. in the morning, same day flight, no real rest. McKnight coming back from injury. Kofi's still not 100%. Tungo was sidelined in Berlin through an ankle. Those are big factors, especially that same day flight. That right there is just rough. We did a game like that. I think it was against Milan, where same day got up, took the bus early, and it was just pathetic. Just absolutely so slow, move so slow. Those are huge factors, which is why I'm going to go with the Bravos on this one.
Interesting. There you're going against the grain. Only 26% of people so far have taken the Bravos. Going with the underdog. Matt?
Yeah, it's another tough one. I do think it's going to be very the same as the other couple of games we've had with Rhein Fire, where they're losing and then they come back in the fourth and win. They keep chipping away with these points drive by drive with Glenn. They do have a vulnerability to big plays. Madrid do have a tendency to make big plays. We saw with Obi in the first game. Madrid have the blueprint, but has Duncan fully transitioned? And like Silas said, I think Helbig was the key to that offense. I think he is more of the play action guy that can fake to Obi and then hit deep over to Patterson. I'm going to go for the death taxes and don't bet against Rhein Fire still. I'm still going to live by that. I'm going to go by Rhein Fire, but I think it'll be less than 3 points in the margin.
This is a good one. This is also, we've got basically two of the best running backs in the league. Not only the best, but the most entertaining, in my opinion. Glenn Tuga and Dwayne Obi, two British ballers. Yeah, man, I don't know. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier, and I can't really put my finger on why I feel this way, but I feel like the Bravos have been kind of punching above their weight when they beat the Rhein Fire and being positioned where they are in the league right now. I'm going to go with the Rhein Fire. I think that the Bravos have been playing very emotional football coming off that Chris Helbig injury. And when you talk to the people on that team, he is such a big part of the spirit of that team, and they played to win for him. I do think a little bit of that emotional momentum is going to wear off. And then I think the Rhein Fire are kind of really looking for revenge here. I do think it'll be a close one, but I got to go Rhein Fire as well. Tino says they kept Tunga under 100 yards rushing. If they do it again, it'll be the key to success. I mean, that's a great point. In their first matchup, Tunga was held to, what was it, 78 or 76 yards?
They got the number one defense in the league statistically. I mean, he played less games, so you kind of got to factor that in. But statistically, They are the best defense in the league.
Right. So that is a big factor if they are able to kind of bottle up Glenn Tunga. Although I don't know, I feel like Glenn is hitting his stride right now in this season, and I don't think that he'll be bottled up like he was in that game when they played. It was very kind of, in my opinion, a little bit fluky for the Rhein Fire. They were very flat. They just couldn't get going, and it was a big kind of emotional game. Lack of emotion on the Fire side, surplus of emotion on the Bravo side, and so that's why I think it's not going to happen again. We'll see.
Yeah.
You think that will factor into the flight thing there?
That's a great point, and Mace in the chat. That's a great point, and the one that Silas brought up there. And I did not know that, and I do think that will play into it a little bit, but and be not great, not a great situation for traveling. But I think they'll still be able to overcome that. But that's what we got.
I'm going with Milan and Throners. I'm going Milan in Italy. I'm going Enthroners in Hungary. It's as simple as that, honestly, for me.
Okay, Silas is going with the 72%, almost 3/4 of people have got Milan. Matt, what are your thoughts on this one?
I think Roby is the key to this one. The Milano defensive backs have been awful, to be frank. They've allowed 17 passing touchdowns in the first 5 weeks. That's nearly 3 a game. That's awful. They still, remain with this running back American thing with not spacing out as a receiver and keeping Flores on one side. They kind of moved him around a little bit more, which has worked. It's a tough one. I think I do agree with Silas. So I think I'm going to go for Milan on this one, just due to the home field advantage.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm actually broadcasting this game, so I'll be watching it really closely. The thing is, the Enthroners, they've only played pretty solid teams. They've played Vienna, they've played Berlin, they've played Wrocław, and their easy game was Cologne. Yes. So all pretty solid teams, kind of a difficult schedule. I would say this is, of course, the lowest ranked team that they have played. This will be the most real matchup for them. Just what you said, Matt, I think Roby steps up against big time competition and plays well in big games. We saw with the championship game last year, but he goes crazy against lower level teams when he just has a field day. I think Roby's going to have one of these, and he's going to be the key to it. The Enthroners pick up the upset and get their first win of the season. I'm going with the Hungarians, boys. Oof. Next one. What do you want? Silas, we should book up probably about 25-30 minutes to talk about this one.
Are they going to put a German at quarterback?
By halftime, probably.
Probably by halftime.
By halftime, probably. I'm going with Jordan Newman. I'm not even going with the Surge. I'm going with Jordan Newman himself.
Jordan Newman puts on a helmet and starts throwing the ball around.
To himself.
You might be able to now. Ken Hike's not in the building.
True. Matt?
Yeah, but yeah, they have the best rush defense, and like Surge do. Helvetic don't have a good offensive line at all. The only thing they have is Carl Nagan, who's a runner, and they have the best rushing defense. And playing defensive backs at receiver ain't slick. You can bring in all the EDBs you want to play receiver. It doesn't mean it's going to work. You get receivers to play receivers, DBs to play DBs. But I'm gonna say that Helvetic's off the field by late second quarter, maybe halftime. I think it probably not a 50-60 point deficit, to be completely honest.
Yeah, it's tough. The Surge backup quarterback's very, very good as well. When he came in against Milan, he himself threw 3 touchdown passes and played nearly perfectly. So even when Riley comes out, they'll probably still be pouring it on there. Marcus in the chat says, no need to talk about this one. And Jordan Pryor says, somebody say a prayer for Carlton Aiken Jr. Get that brother a lineman. Tough. Yeah. I, of course, will be going with the Surge. I'm in the majority. I think everybody is on the same page on that one. Good luck to the Mercenaries, though. We wish them the best. Moving on to could be an interesting Western Conference matchup. I quote, geez, apparently not according to the current split. What are your guys' thoughts on this one? Silas?
Yeah, Paris.
Yeah. I think it might be a slaughter as well.
I don't have a lot of thoughts here.
I have some thoughts. I
do too, actually.
I think Cologne, I don't think that they're going to win. I'm going to go with Paris, but I do think Cologne might keep it competitive, more competitive than some people think. I mean, Matt, we've talked about this. They've shown a little bit of something, and if they were in a different conference, they might be 3-1 right now. Like, I would love to see them in the Central Conference, see where they're at. Obviously, it might be taking a little bit of a step back here because they have getting a new wide receiver. Not going to have much chemistry there. Not that they really had that much anyway to start with. But I do think, and I got Amel on my fantasy team this week. I think he's going to have a nice productive day and possibly get another 100-yard game. But got to go Cologne.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Sorry, not Cologne.
Oh, man. I was going to say, to me a minute then. I'm going to go for Paris as well. Cologne's passing defense and the worst, passing offense rather, is the worst in the league. Paris have Calais Ferret and Marcel Beard and Mir Kalani and Chandler Jones, all these great DBs. I think are going to be able to just completely lock off Cologne's already diminished passing game. They only have to run. Paris have some good linebackers like Dawson Dells. They have Digon Gomez. They have all these guys that can affect the run. I think it'll be. I think they shut them out. I think they score 30. I'm going to go for a Paris quite easily one here.
All right, Matt. I'll make a bet with you that the Cologne don't get shut out. That they at least put up one touchdown. Will you take it?
Yeah. I'll take that one.
Okay, there we go.
Sure.
There you go, Cologne. Good luck. This next one, guys. Silas, give us your extensive thoughts on this one. Berlin versus Prague. I know you're excited.
I'm trying to think of a thought.
That's good right there. It says
Berlin.
a lot. There we go.
Yeah. There we go. That was the thought. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go for Berlin too. Even with the second half woes, their defense. The one interesting thing though is their defense does struggle with the run, and one of the worst teams in the league with the run. And Prague do have Tyrese Johnson-Fisher, and Adam Zuleka. So potentially you could see something interesting happen. I think that's the only way that I see an upset. But with that offensive line, it's doubtful. But I think maybe it's a spark. It's a 1% spark. But I'm still going to go for Berlin.
It's a 7% spark. 7% of people have the Lions. I'm going to go with Berlin as well. But I do think that we can't overlook this game because Berlin, I think they're going to win pretty comfortably. They'll probably be up at halftime. The first time they played, they beat them 48-17. But Berlin needs to get in the habit of not getting complacent and comfortable at halftime. I want to see Berlin keep the foot on the gas this entire game. This is what they've had such a problem with. Berlin really could make a run at the end of the year. They've shown that they can compete and are in a position to beat elite teams. I mean, we talked about it with the Vienna Vikings and the Rhein Fire. Could have beaten both of those teams. They've got to change this culture or this mentality or whatever happens to them in the second half, because I think if they can, they do have a shot to sneak in there and win a few of these big games in the second half of the season. So that's why it's important to me, this Berlin-Prague game, for Berlin to show this to themselves. Michael Klein says the Prague Lions win. Good for you, Michael.
Yeah.
So it's brave.
Awesome. Michael's out there like me right now with 2 fans.
Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah, you got one right there.
I got 2 this time. Screw you, Marcus.
Marcus and Silas, get back into it.
Well, Marcus, this time I only had 1. Look.
What does that say? Silas, number 1 fan.
How many fans do you have, Marcus? 0?
There we go. We should make a new segment, Max. You got to make some graphics of Marcus and Silas.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty good. That'd be a good segment.
I'll watch that, yeah.
All right, moving on to the last game, another one that's leaning pretty heavily one way. What are your thoughts on this, Silas?
I think Hamburg is going to play better than they have been but I still think that the Galaxy wins it. I think it's a close one, which I think will be like one of those ironic things because Frankfurt, Hamburg's been, they haven't been dominating really. They had a kind of a tighter one with Prague. Like they don't look that good. Galaxy should be. I think Galaxy is a much more talented team, but I think Hamburg will give them some troubles, and then Galaxy will win it kind of towards the end of the game, fourth quarter.
Yep, there we go. Matt?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same. I think it'd be a lot closer than those numbers kind of say. Frankfurt are yet to score a rushing touchdown, which is insane to me. They haven't got one rushing touchdown all year.
That's
and
crazy.
They brought Sandro in. You expect him to be a lot more active. They got Fish back and they got Santos in at the backup positions. But for them not to score one rushing touchdown is crazy. I think it'll be close. I think Frankfurt will get a bit of a lead, start to do what they do with creating turnovers for themselves and missing reads. Hamburg come back into it, but I don't think they've got enough. I don't think they've got enough of that elite German talent to step over Frankfurt. So I'm going to pick the Galaxy, but I'm going to pick them by a slim, maybe even one possession.
Wow. Okay. Both of you guys are saying close game.
Yeah.
I am going with the Galaxy as well, but what my thoughts are is I think that the Galaxy still have potential. Obviously, they're just 1-2 right now, have a couple difficult games to start off the season, but they could sneak in there and end up. I don't think they're going to win the Western Conference, but I think if they play up to their potential, they could get second or third and sneak into the playoffs there. But for that to be a realistic option, I need to see Frankfurt smack Hamburg this weekend. I need to see Frankfurt almost show dominance over Hamburg. Hamburg has 2 wins, both against the Prague Lions, and those wins, like you touched on, Silas, they were a little bit more competitive than some people might have thought. So I need to see Frankfurt really separate themselves from Hamburg here. I don't know if it's going to happen. That's what I'm hoping for them, but I'm going to go with Frankfurt, and we'll see if it's a close game like you guys think or if they're able to dominate them.
Mm-hmm.
Mace, so I don't know what to say. Okay, there we go. All right, guys, so that is the slate of games that we have got for this weekend for week 6. Maxie, what do you think? Do we have time? Should we look at the fantasy? What do you think, guys?
Works for me.
Should we check it out? All right, hold on. All right, Maxie, I'm going to share you my fantasy screen. We're going to see my we got to pick one more player for my fantasy squad, and you guys can dissect it and let me know how you feel about these choices. Okay. Can you see that, Maxie?
How did you even get that?
There you go.
That's awesome.
Bro, Maxie's not even paying attention. He's just
Go back to that segment, Maxie. Go back to that segment. Look at that. Should we talk about what's the record? Silas, in your opinion, what's your record versus Marcus?
My record versus Marcus is undefeated.
How are you going to get him back?
I don't even need to get him back. Marcos or whatever. Marcus, make your own show, and then I'll come into the chat, and then just talk about what's in your background. How's that?
There we go. That's what it is. So, hey, new segment we got here. We'll bring it up weekly. Maxie, I know you got a lot of work on your plate, but you're going to have to make a new graphic for Silas versus Marcus every week. It's required now. Make it unique, make it interesting, make it funny. We need it. Thank you. Real quick before we head off, guys, help me pick. Oh, what do I need? This is my squad right here, okay? I just need one more running back, and I need to make an informed decision.
It's got to be Bonatti, man. Got to be Bonatti.
It's got to be Bonatti? Okay,
Yeah,
why?
yeah. Number one Russian offense versus the worst ranked Russian defense. The interior of the Dragons is awful. I think it's going to be 30 plus carries last game. And you go Hasselbanter even, you could probably get a couple, but Bonatti's used more on the goal lines. So
okay.
I'm going to go for Bonatti.
Okay, I think that you made a good case here for me. I'll grab him real quick. We'll go Bonatti. If he's under my salary cap, that's the deal.
No, that's a
Bro, I
big
don't
one.
think you have enough money for him.
I might
don't
take
know.
out Jared Alman now. I'm a big Jared Alman fan, but Paris is scary.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I was going to ask you your opinion on next, actually. Where is he? Where is Bonatti? You see him?
You got to keep going.
You know what? Come on, there he is. 2.6. Can we afford him?
You don't have that.
We got him. Do I have
You know,
that?
there you
I
go.
have it. I got 10,000 left. I could get a kicker.
There
What are you
are.
guys' quick thoughts on this fantasy squad that I've
have
got set up
every-
this weekend?
Every surge player on offense would be probably the best thing to do.
I limited it just to 3 or 2 plus the surge defense. How about that?
That's reasonable.
Yeah. You're going to get a lot of points.
I think Roby probably, as we talked about. I think he could go off there.
He might be expensive though. What American receiver have you got currently?
I got Geyer, and then I've got Chafin and Robitaille.
I'd take Chafin out. I'd put.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd take Chafin out. Although,
Playing Barcelona.
big fan of Chafin. His brother was a running back in my running backs room at Baylor.
Damn,
Really?
Yeah.
The football
brother-
world.
that's pretty cool.
Older brother Devin Chafin.
The football world is so small.
It really is.
It really ends up being so small.
But Chafin
that's-
shows he's had a lot of drops.
Yeah, it's true. But that is a good point. He does have drops. I don't
He's
think I
gonna
get
be-
hurt for his drops, though.
He's going against two. He's going against an EDB in Khaled. He's going against an ADB in Shelton.
Mm.
He's going against Fenchos, another E. Like, that's a lot of guys. I think I maybe just take Geyer or Meyer again, to be honest.
Yeah, true. And actually, Maxie is telling us there's a new feature with the fantasy guys. So if you click on a player here, it shows their points graph. That's really cool. So you see where their points are week by week. So you can get a little bit of a sense and make some informed decisions. This right here, that week 2 where Riley had almost 40 fantasy points. He should have won MVP that week. Really should have.
You could take Reese Horton too. He's playing against the 16th ranked passing defense.
That's smart. But he's probably pretty expensive, isn't he?
He might be, but I know he came in late season, so he might be a bit cheaper.
That's a good point. I'm going to sit with this unless I make any last minute decisions, and we'll see if I regret not listening to you on all of those, Matt. I listened on Bonatti at least.
Yeah. I think that's a good call.
Right?
That looks good, man. That looks good.
We'll see. So you guys get your fantasy rosters set up. Everything's running, firing on all cylinders on fantasy now. It's cool. You can get on the leaderboard. Who was up there? Jamal was like 7th out of all fantasy players.
Jeez.
Yeah, he was killing it. There it is, everybody. Boys, I think that's our show.
That's it.
There we go.
Pretty good stuff. Everyone in the chat, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Always a blast. Marcus and Silas on new segment, the boys.
We could call it just like trashing each other for football.
PFF
Sake
for
of
football.
There you
Love
go.
it. New
For
segment.
the game.
For the love of the game, we'll do it.
I want to see
All
them two
right, boys.
commentate together. That's what I want to see. Them commentate a game as color commentary.
God,
That's what I want to see.
Marcus commenting a game. That would be good. We should
Speaking,
get that done.
hey, speaking of which, everybody tune into the Enthroners Milano game because I'm going to be commentating that. I fly to America tomorrow morning, and I'm going to wake up early the next day. It's going to be early morning, and I'm broadcasting that game. So listen up and see if I make any mistakes.
I love it.
There
All
we
right,
go.
guys. I'm out of here.
Have a great day, everyone. Matt,
Bye.
Silas, pleasure, boys. Chat,
Chat,
pleasure.
Love
See you
y'all.
later.
Peace.
Peace.